Seeing at 6 p.m., I'd like to call the July 7, 2021 regular meeting of the Kenai City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening, and I'd like to say it's nice to see everybody back up on the dais. If you're able to, would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Gabriel.
Here.
Councilmember Petty. Here. Councilmember Nackstedt.
Here.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Here.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Here.
Councilmember Winger.
Present.
Councilmember Askin.
Here.
Mayor Gabriel, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get to agenda approval, Council would like to draw your attention to a laydown you should have in front of you with requested revisions to the agenda packet. Action, add to item D1, ordinance number 3217-2021, amendment memo requested by the city manager. Action, add to item D2, ordinance number 3219-2021, amendment memo and supplemental information requested by the city manager and city clerk. Action, add to item D6, resolution number 2021-48, substitute resolution and substitute resolution memo requested by the city manager. Add to item I, report of the mayor, mayoral letter regarding FMP regulations requested by the city clerk. Add to item J3, city clerk's report, board of adjustment hearing memo requested by the city clerk. And add to item O, informational items, 4th of July parade results requested by Councilmember Nackstedt. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to approve the agenda with the requested revisions to the agenda and packet listed by the mayor and request unanimous consent.
Second.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Councilmember Nackstedt.
Thank you. I move to approve the consent agenda and request unanimous consent. Second.
Is there anybody in the body that would like to amend the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please read the consent agenda into the record?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Tonight on your consent agenda, you have the approval of the regular meeting minutes of June 16th, 2021, brought forth by the city clerk. Approval of bills to be ratified, brought forth by administration. Approval of purchase orders over $15,000, brought forth by administration. Introduction of ordinance number 3221-2021, determining that real property described as Lot 4A, Block 3, Cook Inlet, Industrial Air Park, 2014 replat, according to plat number 2014-21, city-owned airport land outside the airport reserved, is not needed for a public purpose, and authorizing the sale of the property to Schilling Rentals and Alaska Partnership, brought forth by administration with a public hearing on August 4th. Introduction of ordinance number 3222-2021, determining that real property described as Lot 1A, Block 1, Deshka subdivision, according to plat number K1577, city-owned airport land located outside the airport reserve, is not needed for a public purpose, and authorizing the sale of the property to Schilling Rentals 2016 LLC, brought forth by administration with a public hearing on August 4th. Introduction of ordinance number 3223-2021, increasing fiscal year 2021 estimated revenues and appropriations in the General Fund Police Department and accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation passed through the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities for traffic enforcement overtime expenditures, brought forth by administration with a public hearing on August 4th. And introduction of ordinance 3244-2021, repealing and reenacting Kenai Municipal Code Title VI elections to provide clarity, housekeeping, and process improvements, brought forth by the mayor, Vice Mayor Malloy, and the city clerk with a public hearing on August 4th. And that's your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to any item that is on the consent agenda, which was just read into the record by the clerk? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. We have no scheduled public comments tonight. Under item C, unscheduled public comments, is there anybody from the general public that would like to address the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Okay, we've got one, and then you're next. Hang on, well, I see. No, we got another one.
Should they
We got
go
Miss
for me?
Nelson here. You get to lead off, Miss.
I get to lead
Mary.
off? Okay, thank you. Well, as usual, I'm here for the Arts Center. And we had our reopening last Thursday, which was a great success. The Potters Guild has a show that opened, and it's fantastic. It's up for the whole month. So if you missed the opening, be sure and go and see that. It's through the end of the month, and Wednesday through Saturday, noon to 5, all those days. We sold some items, and crowd was great. Happy people. Bob was there. That guy next to you, Henry, was there. And good time had by all, for sure. But tonight, I'm here to just to discuss some papers that you probably have in front of you, having to do with the end of the story. We hope it's the end of the story, that this is what we need to finish the remodeling of the back part of the building, which we are now referring to as the workshop room. And it had several other names, but that's going to be the one now. So just for the sake of reference, that's what we're talking about. Plus the bathroom that is now handicap accessible and really, really nice, and the things that are not completed. You have, I think, you have before you, right, a statement from Polar North Construction, who I must say they've done a great job, great to work with, so forth and so on. And this is the amount that is estimated to be what we would need to finish up. Just to tell you also that right now, the Arts Center organization itself has spent $1,730 on paint, flooring, miscellaneous supplies, storage rentals, so forth and so on. And we have between 200 and 300 hours of volunteer time involved, at least, in what's been done. And more to come. I was painting the floor in the workshop room and one of the other side rooms just the other night. It's pretty fun to paint a floor, you know. I guess what I need to ask is where we are financially, because my understanding was when it came before council initially, that we got the grant money to do what we've done, and then we were, can I use the word encouraged, but told anyway, we could come back and ask for more if we needed it. Well, we need it, and the upper end of that was possibly up to as much as $150,000. So that was my understanding, and I believe that perhaps I was wrong, perhaps it wasn't stated correctly, perhaps I twisted it around. But in any case, that's what I'm doing right now, is requesting this additional amount so that we can finish, and you can see from Polar North's statement here, what are the items that need to be finished. Questions?
Any questions for Ms. Nelson? So, go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah,
Van Dam.
just to refresh my understanding, the number, the top number was 150, and you are at how much now? You're at
Right at 120.
120.
Yeah, the work is stopped now.
Yeah.
You cannot go any further.
Right. So
People need
so
to be
one
paid,
120
and then
and 25 puts us under 150.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're within our projected estimate.
Yeah, there were some people that estimated as much as 185,
Right.
but fortunately, that's not the case.
Okay. Thank you for controlling costs.
Well, we put in a lot of time.
I know you did. I know you did.
Painted a lot of walls. We painted all the walls in the whole place, practically.
Marion, so just to, for clarity, it says one of the lines in your laydown here was that the completion information from Polar North today brings us to a total of $145,000. So does that include the requested $24,000? The 145?
Say that again, Brian.
There was a line in there that said the completion information from Polar North today brings us to a total of about 145,000. Therefore,
Right.
I'm requesting. So does that include the 24,000?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Just wanted to clarify that. Councilmember Nexton.
Yeah, I was curious, we did grant $120,000, and then I know that you received another 40 in CARES Act? No, 20, I'm sorry, 20,000 in CARES Act funds. There was 10,000. Do you still have those funds, or did you use those for capital improvements?
I couldn't tell you for sure right at the moment. Wish I could, but I can't bring that to memory right now.
Okay.
Involved, they're part of, they had specific goals for that money, and those were, they were identified for those goals. It didn't have anything to do with this.
Any other questions of Ms. Nelson? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So, Ms. Nelson, I agree. I think your the reopening was a really great event. Thank you and the Potters Guild for that, and I also appreciate the tour that you gave to me and Councilmember Naxted, you know, the Potters workshop and the other areas. And I could see the work that you identified, you know, and unfortunately, we can't act on you know, appropriating money for this evening.
Right,
You know, I
understand
mean, you said your message is that they could finish their Art Center project in the next 2 weeks with our approval of the completion quote tonight, but you know, because they're public funds and everything, and we're unable to do that this evening. You know, I think this is an item that administration could look into further. We do have some information on it, and it would be something that we could potentially take up in August.
Okay.
And you know, it seems like from your message that they have another job, a big job that probably will take them through August. But you know, there's still more time left in the year for completion of construction
It's my
projects.
understanding that they will be out of town to do that next job. It's a cell tower, so it's not a small project, of course. And Alex Bias said he would be leaving 2 to 3 weeks from now or so. So then he will be gone and out of pocket for our purposes. Maybe some of the other subcontractors could come and do some things. I don't know. I can't sort out the exact allotment of work here, but however it works out is however it works out. I mean, we'd be just happy to know that we can continue and finish, get really done, would be wonderful.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Also, I want to say that I think the interior looks awesome, really good. You know,
Oh,
they
we
did
do
a
too.
really good job. The lighting is good, really good. I know you want to improve that and everything. Also, I just wanted to personally thank you for the tour that you gave to my set of visitors. I had my first set of visitors to Kenai since 2019, you know, over the last 10 days, and it was closed, but, you know, you gave them a personal tour, and I just wanted to say I really thank you for that, and I think you're doing a really good job with the Fine Arts Center. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you. Any other questions of Ms. Nelson? Yeah, so I think probably the thing to do, Mayor, would be get with administration. We don't have a second meeting, scheduled meeting in July, so it would be a first meeting in August, and then that gives them a chance to identify any funding source that we'd be able to consider for that, and then see if they could get put on the agenda that way, I think would be the best.
Okay, well, the ball is rolling then.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
I'd like to say, I was bummed that I did miss the grand reopening. It was
Oh, I understand.
just bad
Fish,
timing, but,
Brian. Fish
yeah,
are
I
work.
know, so I'll get over there, believe me.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to speak to the council on any item that's not on the agenda or consent agenda? Please come forward, give your name and address for the record, please.
Patty C., 314 Rogers Road. First of all, just thank you so much for serving our community. We appreciate you. You don't always hear that. You only hear the complaints, so thank you. I have two things that sometimes keep me awake at night, and I don't know if you can help with either of them. The first one is, in the past, we used to receive once a year a report about the safety of our drinking water. And the last year, maybe the last 2 years, we haven't received that. And last year I called and they said, oh, you can go online and you can find it there. But I think legally the city is supposed to send out a report to all of us. I have one for my other residents in Arizona. So and that was my reminder. So that's what I'm just wondering if, you know why we no longer get those? They were hot pink or bright red. And we got them once a year from,
That's a good question. I actually am on well water, so I'm not on city water myself, but that'd be something I would defer possibly to administration. I know we got our finance director, Mr. Eubank, is filling in for, I see him vigorously jotting down notes here, so.
okay, just as long as it's looked into, because for us personally, we want to, know those numbers. So, and the other one I spoke a couple of years ago about, and you were so nice, and that was, I was worried about all the beetle kill, and I know it's a continual discussion within the community, but I worry so much about fire. And we have so many more trees now than we had last year or the year before. And I know they're coming down. We personally took down 130, 140 at a big price. So we're kind of doing our part. But so I'm hoping that there is a plan more than that one gentleman that's cutting down trees and milling them that was in the paper the other day. I was wondering, could we ever use any of our stimulus money for something like hiring people to go out and do more of this so that we could possibly prevent a fire, a big fire? And there's a second part to that. And that is has there been a lot of discussion between our city leaders, the fire department, the police department, on a plan should we catch on fire? Because I think that firecrackers are going off still. I worry about fire danger. So those are my two laying awake at night concerns.
Sure, and on the beetle kill portion of that, I think everybody's really, seems like in the last 6 months, it's become apparent, how
It's big.
widespread it is. And I know if you've drove in here, you've seen the city's doing some mitigation on our own property for beetle kill removal, but I know it's something that administration has been working on. And the borough has applied for a grant too, I think forget the exact amount for doing mitigation. So, Councilmember Winger.
Yes, I just want to say thank you for coming in and testifying on those two issues. The spruce bark beetle especially has been of notice. I know from a CERT point of view, I know there's other CERT members in the audience. If on a CERT point of view, we are a high fire risk. And I would like to know what our mitigation plan is as a whole for our city.
Seems like we should have a discussion going if it isn't.
I agree. And this is a discussion and not just a discussion, but we need to move a plan forth. So I do support that. It is something that I see as a dire need. I would like to see us actively attack this without waiting for the borough's assistance myself. So thank you for testifying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. C. Is there anybody else from the general public that'd like to address the council at this time on any item that is not on the agenda or consent agenda? Seeing
For
none?
those of you on Zoom, you can unmute or use the raise your hand feature.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to public hearings. First up, we have ordinance number under D1, ordinance number 3217-2021, conditionally donated certain city-owned property described as two approximately 1 1/4 acre parcels to be subdivided from a portion of the 72-acre more or less portion of southeast quarter lying east of the Tract A, Kenai Meadows, Kenai Peninsula Borough parcel number 039-01065 to Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiative for the development of restricted income and senior housing. And this was postponed from our June 16th meeting for a second hearing. Motion to enact is on the floor. So before we get to that, I guess I will open it up for public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to ordinance number 3217-2021 at this time?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's good to see all of you face to face. You may have seen my face briefly in the Zoom presentation that I did by PowerPoint last April. I am Stephen Rouse, Executive Director for Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiatives. I want to thank you in advance for consideration of our proposal. We're very excited about the prospects of continuing the development of senior and income-restricted property here in Kenai. We have already registered for 2 projects with AHFC this year. Pre-applications will be due July 22nd, and actual applications where the site control must be affirmed will be in late September, early October. So I just wanted to say thank you, put a name with my face and a face with my name, and know that I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Any questions for Mr. Rouse? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anybody else from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance number 3217-2021?
Anyone on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
So we'll bring it back to council. Comments, deliberation, discussion from council? Seeing none, I will just go on record and say that I support this ordinance. And I think that Mr. Rouse has done, he's got a track record here in the city of Kenai along with other communities on the peninsula, and very good outcomes of those projects, and hope to see that continue in the city of Kenai. So I will be supporting this. Any other discussion? Councilmember Nexton.
Well, I thought I'd go ahead and make the amendment.
Oh, yes,
as
very good,
recommended.
thank you.
In our packet, there's a recommended amendment that I'll move to add the 6th whereas clause. Whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the conditional land donation at their meeting on June 23rd, 2021, and
Second.
requesting unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the amendment is passed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll on ordinance number 3217-2021 as amended.
Mayor Gabriel?
Yes.
Councilmember Petty?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet?
Yes?
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up, we have item D2, ordinance number 3219-2021, conditionally donating certain city-owned property described as one approximately 2-acre parcel to be subdivided from a portion of the 6.8-acre more or less portion of the east of Track 4 Barron Park subdivision, Kenai Peninsula Borough parcel number 045-01-035, to Triumvirate Theater for the development of a theater facility. And there's a clerk's note at the June 16th meeting. It was postponed to this meeting, and a motion to enact is on the floor. So I'll reopen that for public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to ordinance number 3219-2021? Mr. Rizzo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for considering this donation to Triumvirate Theater. I was recently on a trip to go see grandkids in the lower 48. Our travels took us to Idaho and Utah and Colorado, all around. And it was very evident to me as we stayed in the various communities, which communities had vision and took advantage of the things that made their community great and which ones did not. And I was thinking a lot about this facility being in Kenai and how, with the right vision, how it really could transform this community into one that really nurtures kids and really can make a big economic impact on the community and on businesses here. If any of you have ever been to Ashland, Oregon, it is the home of the Shakespeare Festival there. And what a lot of people don't know is there's really no reason for Ashland, Oregon to host a Shakespeare Festival. There's no reason for it at all, except a bunch of bitty ladies got together and said, we're gonna make something in this town. And today they sell $30 million in tickets over a 5-month season. It's some of the greatest theater you will ever see, and it's in tiny little Ashland, Oregon, who, by the way, has much higher property values than Medford, that's just 15 minutes from there. I included into your packets some conceptual drawings of the theater and the layout of it on this piece of property that's being considered. When I am working with the architects on this, I'm very, very excited about the possibility of seeing this vision realized. I think that it will be a facility unlike any other in Kenai, and with the purpose of catching kids and making sure that no child in this community falls through the cracks. And I think that if if this is approved tonight, I think we're going to be able to move forward with this. All of these things show great support to the foundations and the corporations that we desperately need to make this happen. This building is going to be the largest project that we've ever taken on. So I know for you guys, this is all old hat. For us, it's pretty new. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those.
Councilmember Winger.
Yes, Joe, I just want to say thank you for coming and testifying on this again. I'm happy to support this. I am excited to bring you into the city of Kenai. I too did some traveling around our state with my children and noticed that a lot of the smaller areas really do capitalize on something. Ashland, Oregon capitalized on the Shakespeare play, and it's worked well for them. I've noticed that every little town in our city really captures something through arts. So I'm excited to invite you into Kenai. I would like to see maybe a cultural significant play put on that we could sell tickets through the summer to our tourists that maybe, I heard there was a Once Upon the Kenai play. I think something like that, partnering with our chamber, would just add that much more to coming into our city as well. So I'm excited to have you guys. I think the growth and the limits of what we can do together is going to be amazing. And thanks for coming into Kenai.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I agree with that. And I want to say also, Mr. Rizzo, thank you very much for the conceptual drawings. That really adds fuel to the fire of excitement. The whole, the way that you've laid out how the theater and the parking area may be, and then also the interior of the theater, the stage and the backstage, et cetera. It's just looks like it's going to be an amazing building. So definitely happy to support this also. Thank you.
Councilmember next then.
Thanks for coming again, and I appreciate the visual aids. So I thought I'd give you maybe an opportunity to tell us a little more about the building. I mean, we can see it here. Perhaps, the amount of seating, I guess I could count what looks like chairs. There's also a balcony. And do you have plans in the long future? Would this allow you to expand? I mean, it looks like you got some room there to the south where the building would get bigger. Is that in your long-term plan? Is that
We probably, I'm sure when I'm dead and gone and there's some other executive director that's very excited about expanding, that may happen. Right now, I'm focusing on just making this building happen. But thank you for noting the balcony. I think that the architects and I have worked very hard to try and make that a part of the building without it costing too much. But I think that a second level to this is going to really make this a unique building, a special building. And also it helps us be sustainable because, believe it or not, people pay a premium price to sit in the balcony. I don't know why, but they do. When I told my board members years ago, we should charge extra money for the balcony because people will pay it. They're like, that's not going to. Guess which seats we sell first? The ones that are most expensive in the balcony. So you can see on that drawing that there's a little reception room for those who pay the extra money to sit in the balcony. That helps a great deal to support the programs. Which is all, for us, it's all about sustainability and making sure that once we build this facility, that we can pay for this facility and maintain the facility. So you'll see that it also looks down into the lobby, which is nice because it gives a higher ceiling, kind of gives the lobby a bigger feel for less square footage. And the theater itself will have state-of-the-art sound and lighting for that small of an area. We received a $25,000 grant from the Atwood Foundation recently to purchase a great deal of sound equipment and some of the lighting equipment. And we're waiting to hear back from another foundation. And then at the end of July, we're going to submit our query letter to the Rasmussen Foundation. If we can bring what we've raised so far and this land donation, I think we have a very good shot at having them come on board and give us the help that we need. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Maybe I missed it. Do you have a idea of how many seats you'll end up with?
That design right there is for 120 seats.
120 seats. Okay, very good. Yeah, it looks like it's got a really nice little lobby area also. That's very nice. Councilmember Glendenning.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Thank you, Mr. Rizzo, for just having the king's thought that perhaps we could create an attractive destination for culture within our city. And it's important that this project goes forward. And thank you for your energy and clarity in your memos and definitions. And I see here that, for example, the Rasmussen Fund funds capital project at 50% of the total cost, and the land donation would be considered matching funds. That is important to note, in addition to the generous contributions and in-kind donations that have been made already.
It is, yes. And some of the donations that we've been receiving is from area businesses that have, donated services and supplies, and we're going to continue on with that in the next couple of weeks. The more we can bring to the Rasmussen Foundation, the better off we're going to be. I think that they're in support of this, but I am not taking anything for granted whatsoever.
Councilmember Petty.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Russo, thank you for coming forth with a vision for this. I did see the fruition of the vision that you had out north, which was very, very beautifully done, and I wouldn't expect anything less with you at the helm. And I look at this as a huge investment in the future of our community and the youth in our community, so that it will enhance the lifestyle of our citizens and also be an attractive opportunity for others who might want to come and be among us. So thank you so very much, and I will be supporting this.
Yes, I'm hoping too that this will outlive all of us and do great things in the future. Oh, come on. You bury us all.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you. If there's no other comments, I could make the amendment motions.
Sure, I just wanted to see if there's any other comments.
Yes, I just note with interest here on the last page, page 34 of your memo, it talks about the parcel will likely require a subdivision of the acres for theater project donation, and it talks about playing nicely with the new Kenai Dog Park. Yeah, so we work hand in glove, and we'll have maybe another opportunity to exceed and excel for something for our citizens in Kenai. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Rizzo? I just want to say I really appreciate, I think what I see here is you've been far, way out ahead on lining up your financing and everything. And so it wasn't, hey, give us the land and we'll see what we can do with it. I mean, you guys looks like you are pretty laser focused on, getting where you need to be. And so hopefully this will come together pretty quickly.
We're pretty determined to make it happen.
I see that. Thank you. Thank you. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So there's two motions on page 3 of the laydown. I would first move to amend the legal description in both the title and section 2 to track 4A Barron Park 2020 replat.
I'll second.
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the moment the amendment is approved.
And then I would move to add as the sixth whereas clause, whereas the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the conditional land donation at their meeting on June 23rd, 2021, and
I'll second.
Request unanimous consent to
Thank
that
you.
amendment.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? That amendment is approved. And just to circle back here a little bit, we sort of cut off public testimony pretty quickly there, so I just wanted to ask if there was anybody else that was wanting to testify to ordinance number 3219-2021.
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Very good. So we have ordinance number 3219-2021 as amended before us. Any further comments, questions, deliberations? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Petty,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet,
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Council on item D3, ordinance number 3225-2021, amending and appropriating a Go Further fund building capacity grant from Meals on Wheels America and for the Kenai Senior Center's ability to meet the increased need brought on by COVID-19, expanding comprehensive services and drive innovation in the area of nutrition and socialization. And before we get to a motion to bring this to the floor, I just wanted to just let the public know that we don't normally do this. There's a time crunch on this ordinance. We normally would have it would be brought up on our agenda of the meeting before the public hearing as an introduction. But since we are sort of on a time crunch for this grant funding, we are going to try to introduce it and vote on it at this meeting. So that's why it's might be a little bit different than what we see in our other parts of the legislation. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I'd move for introduction of ordinance number 3225-2021.
I'll second.
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, ordinance number 3225-2021 is introduced. Can I have a motion for a second reading?
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I'd move for second reading of ordinance number 3225-2021 at this meeting.
I'll second.
Is there unanimous consent?
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Is there any objection to unanimous consent? Seeing none, I would like to do the second reading. Ordinance number 3225-2021, accepting an appropriations and Go Further fund building capacity grant from Meals on Wheels America for the Kenai Senior Center's ability to meet the increased need brought on by COVID-19, expanding comprehensive services, and drive innovation in the areas of nutrition and socialization. And with that, I'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to testify on ordinance number 3225-2021?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you. I would move for adoption of ordinance number 3225-2021.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Naxtet,
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Petty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Council on item D3, resolution number 2021-46, Adopting joint resolution number 2021-001 of the Assembly of the Kenai Peninsula Borough and Councils of Cities of Homer, Kenai, Seldovia, Seward, and Soldotna respectively for the purpose of intergovernmental administration of borough and city of elections. This pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxton.
Thank you. I move to approve Resolution 2021-46.
Second?
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-46?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
See, now we'll bring it back to council. I'd probably ask the city clerk to just give us a little bit of an overview on this. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So as you recall, last year, there was the ordinance to, well, I guess it's sort of been going on for longer than that, since the borough was the subject of an ADA complaint in regards to its elections. And then they had the stakeholders group get together and recommend the by-mail election, which the assembly adopted, but then ultimately the voters repealed. So that in the discussions that the clerks were having as far as elections going forward and the boroughs need to purchase their own equipment, what this agreement does is sort of puts into actual writing how the borough works together with all of the cities in the administration of its elections, so that we can have efficiencies in the administration of the elections, and so that the voters, the shared voters between the boroughs and the city, the borough and the cities borough-wide have a similar experience. And so it really just memorializes what we have been traditionally doing. It just happens to be that now we're using the borough's equipment instead of the state's equipment. And so that's sort of an overview.
Councilmember Glendinning.
Yeah, thank you for the promotion. I have a question about the ADA compliant voting machines. Will they be placed in each precinct?
Yes.
I also have a question for Ms. Hines. It stated that there would be programming, just and accuracy testing. Who does the testing? Do you know?
Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. The borough has always done the programming. In the past, there were memory cards that the borough clerk's office programmed, and it's their equipment now, so they will continue to program it. And the borough's canvas board does the testing. And the borough has recently enacted, or will be enacting, ordinances to memorialize what has always been their policies as far as security and accuracy testing.
Councilmember Glendinning.
Yeah, just to affirm what you just said. So the clerks in the past have managed the electronics, the computer aspects of the voting machines, and will continue to do so. Will there be any reliance on an outside contractor to assist in the actual manipulation or management or installation of programs in the machines?
Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I'm not aware of that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Petty.
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk, for giving us this information. But I did go and call the President of the Assembly, Brent Hubert, and had some insight that he shared with me because I was concerned about the equipment, and he did say that it was Dominion voting machines, and that they were made in the United States and Texas, and that the borough would continue to utilize paper ballots, and that these machines would always be hardwired, that they would not be utilizing any type of Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. And I wanted to state that for the record so that anyone who was listening to this would have that insight about why I would be voting for this, so that I myself could reassure voters of the authenticity and being able to authenticate the votes. And so, thank you for letting me share that.
Mayor Gabriel, if I could.
Yes, Ms. Hines.
If I could just add, for anybody who's listening, if you're interested, please take the time to go listen to the April 20th meeting where the borough considered purchasing the Dominion equipment. They had a lot of discussion about the company and the security measures in place and to verify the security of the elections, and it was is very useful and helpful information.
Councilman Glendenning.
Yeah, just to clarify a term. So when you say these devices will be hardwired, that means that there'd be an air gap between those and any access to the internet. Is that what you're saying?
Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Phone lines, physical phone lines, copper wire is connected to them at the end of the night after election, after the voting is over, to transmit the results.
Councilman Winger.
Yes, thank you. I too, like Ms. Petty, reached out to assembly members with concerns to these machines. I had heard a lot of concern about security and integrity. Upon talking with the IT, that was my understanding, as these would not be Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. It seems to be, they don't feel that the machines themselves are unsafe or questionable in the security. It's more the chain of custody. It falls back to human error, not the computer error. So I think in this, I will support it going forth. I do have little reservations that were, for the most part, put to rest. I still have concerns on chain of custody and the security, so making sure things are locked, not accessible to anybody other than those that are approved to. So I will be supporting this, but I do have some concern just on chain of custody and security of these machines, ballots, and everything else.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I too will be supporting this joint, this resolution, adopting the joint resolution. I'm pleased to see the borough in our city, as well as other cities, continuing to, work together on our elections. I'm really pleased that, in our history, at least during my time being involved in elections, our elections have always been fair and conducted by our clerks with integrity and security. I'm happy to hear that that's going to continue, so that we've had no election contests, at least in the last 20 years. And I think that's a really positive thing for our city and our borough. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on that. After this last, particularly the presidential election, there was a lot of people that, I think questioned some of the results. I think, and part of that had to do with how the results came in. There was delays, and then, these when they do these tranches of ballots, there's these big swings that went on, which, but one of the things I'd say, the confidence in our elections is paramount to our democracy. We have to have people that are confident that when they cast the vote, it will be counted. And I think, my observations with our city clerk and the borough clerks that work hand in hand to administer those elections, I agree with Councilmember Vice Mayor Malloy that they do a very good job and have high integrity. And just for everybody to know that, the action that was repealed by the voters was the mail-in voting. So I think that was another thing that was a hot button topic, was, blasting ballots out to everybody, and then hoping they come back, you know, you know, I think that led to a lot of folks questioning how this, so we still have absentee ballots. If you want to vote by mail, you can request an absentee ballot. You can come to here, I think it's 2 weeks prior to the election, Ms. Hines, to vote early, and then, of course, you can vote on election day. So those things I have full confidence in. But I do have a question just on the fee schedule, Ms. Hines, the Section 3. I'm just looking at this. I'm taking it that we're not paying for any of the capital costs of the machines. This is just sort of the normal administrative cost for services provided by the Borough Clerk's office.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. For the most part, what we are paying for is what we have traditionally paid for. What is new is the ballot programming, which is $500 per election, and the logic and accuracy testing, which is $100 per regular election. I believe that since this is their equipment now, and not the state's equipment, it's fair to pay for them to program our ballot and do the logic and accuracy testing. Additionally, a new fee is the $100 per page in the voter pamphlet. I believe that it's fair that the city pays for its pages in the voter pamphlet instead of the borough picking that all up. We have always shared services for absentee voting. We've always paid 50% of the wages for the election workers. And we've always paid 50% of the half of the rental fees. So the increases aren't significant, and they have been budgeted for this year.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any further discussion, deliberation? Councilmember Naxa.
Thank you for asking that question, Mayor, because that was kind of the question I had, was the fiscal part, and it didn't look like it had changed much. And I don't think that anything else has either. I'm one of those people that I don't believe, I'm 60 now, and I don't think I've ever missed an election or voted anywhere, and I've always had utmost confidence however I voted, when I was in college, and it was mail-in, or whatever it was, and certainly with our clerk and the borough clerk and the whole process, and I don't see where anything has changed. I have utmost confidence in it. I don't have concerns. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Glendenning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Petty,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtat.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Council on item D5, resolution number 2021-47, accepting coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds award to non-entitlement units of local government from the State of Alaska Department of Commerce, Community and Economic Development. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to adopt resolution number 2021-47.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-47?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring it back to council and ask, since this is probably in Mr. Eubank's wheelhouse, we'll ask him if he can give us a little overview on this and what it actually means.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This resolution is being required by the state DCCED in order for them to meet the federal guidelines regarding ARPA funds, where they have, once the state receives these funds for the NEUs, the non-entitlement units, which the city is one, they have 30 days to distribute those funds. And the only way that happens is by a resolution like this, giving us the authority to accept the funds. This does not appropriate the funds. That will be a separate discussion. So this gives the administration the ability to negotiate the grant agreements and things with DCCED. And then once the final amount is known, it's estimated right now almost $1.9 million to the city. We will bring back an ordinance for appropriation of those funds and the spending plan and so on and so forth. So this really is a timing issue for the state in order to satisfy the agreements or the requirements of the ARPA funds, and just gives us the ability to negotiate the documents.
Thank you, Mr. Eubank. Deliberation, Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, just a question. The ARPA funds in their distribution and eligibility for categories to be spent by the municipality that receives it, it's different from CARES. Is there just a simple explanation of the difference between the two? ARPA funds could be used, say, for our water treatment plant, it could be used for other things, and I mean, as a direct expense obligation from the city. Am I correct on that?
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Glendenning. The eligible expenditures under the ARPA funds are different than what was under CARES Act. I think in some cases they're more stringent. I think there is more direct ties to direct financial impact, for spending some of the money, but there are other areas. It does provide for revenue replacement for some governmental entities. I will say we haven't finished the calculations, but I don't think the city of Kenai is going to be eligible for revenue replacement because I don't think we had a revenue loss. But it also provides things for water and sewer infrastructure projects as an eligible expenditure. Broadband infrastructure is another direct eligible expenditure. So it is different than CARES, but I don't know that it's an easy explanation.
It sounded easy.
Councilmember Winger.
Yes, thank you. I have a question for Mr. Eubank. So if we can use this for infrastructure, would we be able to allocate any of this to the spruce bark beetle issue to help landowners?
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Councilmember Winger, Mr. Mayor. I don't think directly, I'd hate to say no, or definitively no at this point, but water and sewer infrastructure and broadband infrastructure are very specific in the guidance and allowable. It's not for other construction type projects. It's very specific to those two types. So not to say that there's not another clause or allowable program under this that spruce bark beetle may fit into, but it's certainly not under those two infrastructure type.
Thank you. I just have one other question as well. I believe it had stated something in the article I read about hazard pay or something for first responders. Can you touch on that, please?
Mr. Eubank.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Winger. There is allowable provisions for hazard pay, and there. I don't know the exact. I'd have to reread the specifics about the requirements, but there are provisions in there allowing for hazard pay, and there are provisions in there to allow for continued pay of public safety wages. However, there's much more strict ties to the amount of time spent directly working on COVID-19 protocols and COVID-19 situations. So, like I said, in that aspect, I think these ARPA funds are more restrictive than the CARES Act money that came out originally.
Great, thank you.
Any further discussion on resolution number 2021-47?
Question on this consent?
Thank you. Unanimous consent is requested. Is there any objection? Vice Mayor Malloy.
No objection, but could we take a 5-minute pause after this one?
Okay, sure. Seeing no objection to unanimous consent, resolution number 2021-47 is adopted. And let's take a 10-minute Call our meeting back to order here. And Council, we're on item D3. I'm sorry, D6, resolution number 2021-48, authorizing a service agreement for the person who uses fishery dumpsters and portable restrooms. Pleasure, Council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to adopt resolution number 2021-48.
Second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2021-48?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. I will note that there was a suggested substitute for this legislation. If anybody care to move it, Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to amend resolution number 2021-48 by substitute resolution number 2021-48.
Second.
Any discussion?
Request unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we now have the substitute resolution 2021-48 before us. Any further discussion from council? Councilman Winger.
I just wanted to note that I know Alaska Waste has taken a really hard hit on their rentals, but I was a little bummed out to see that they didn't even put in a bid for Schedule A and Schedule B. I do support Peninsula Pumping. I think what Sean Cood does in our community is amazing. He goes up and beyond for the city, and I do appreciate all their hard work. It would have just been nice to see the struggling Alaska Waste to put a Schedule A and B in there. That's all I have.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Petty,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet,
Yes.
Councilmember Glendenning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're on item D7, resolution number 2021-49, authorizing a contract award to supply operational chemicals for the city's water treatment and wastewater treatment facilities. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
I move for approval of resolution 2021-49.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that'd like to speak to resolution number 2021-49?
Anyone on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Comments from council, discussion? Councilmember
Request
Naxted.
unanimous consent.
Thank you. Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-49 is adopted. Next, we have resolution number 2021-50, authorizing a service contract extension to provide refueling services for city facility fuel tanks. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Naxted.
I move for approval of resolution 2021-50.
I'll second.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-50?
Anyone on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
It's like we got a little schnauzer listening intently online there. Oh, Scotty, looks like my glasses on. With that, we'll bring it back to council. Any discussion from council? Councilmember Glendenning?
Yeah, just a quick question. This actually provides capacity for fueling standby generators and equipment. Is that what we're looking at here, the dollar amounts and the location of these devices?
Mr. Eubank?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Glendenning. Yes, the largest use of this contract is the at Airport Operations Center, which provides fuel for all the equipment to remove snow on the airport. But it also provides the fuel for the backup generators at all the different city facilities as well. So, 50,000 of this contract out of 54,500 is related to the airport operations, and the other 4,500 is backup generators.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on resolution number 2021-50? I believe unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-50 is adopted. Next, we have resolution number 2021-51, amending the schedule of rates, fees, and charges and fees to incorporate changes to facility rental gym fees at the Kenai Recreational Center. Pleasure, council. Councilmember Askin.
I move that we adopt resolution 2021-51.
For a second.
I second that.
Okay, Councilmember Winger seconded. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-51?
Anybody on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Discussion from council. Councilmember Winger.
I was just wondering, maybe this is a question for Mr. Eubank. Who is the biggest user group at this facility? Do we have those numbers that you could give us?
Mr. Eubank, does I see Mr. Frady's here, but Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Winger. I will defer. I don't have that information, and I'm not sure if Mr. Frady's does, but Bob might be able to speak to it.
Mr. Frady's.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I don't have numbers, but I would probably safe to say that our biggest user group would be Boys and Girls Club Indoor Soccer, Boys and Girls Club Indoor Basketball. We also, Kenai Little League uses the gym at least for some rentals or for programs. And then Kenai Central High School basketball, like their C team, and then also Kenai Middle School.
Just a follow-up. Do any of those qualify as the nonprofit youth athletic programs that get user for free, or are they actively renting that space?
They all would qualify.
They would all qualify?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on resolution number 2021-51?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Ms. Winger, do you have a?
Oh, I just had a follow-up
Sure.
on that. I'm sorry. I'm looking through the fee group and having discussions myself with the Boys and Girls Club. It seemed to be structured that city employees get to use the facility for free. If I'm remembering, we have agreement with seniors and veterans being able to use it for free or a reduced rate. Is there any information we can get on that? And then my understanding would be basically the ones that would be paying to use this would be school-age children that are going to have something to do, play sports, be active, healthy, and engaged. So if we're ultimately waiving the fee for all these user groups, I would like to see school-age children added to that as well.
Were you looking for answers to those questions, or?
A little bit, and then just a statement on as well.
Okay, I guess Mr. Frady is through Mr. Eubank.
That's fine.
Yep, Councilman Mayor. So currently, anyone under the age of 18 uses the gym for free. So there's no cost there already. And it is true that the city does have a wellness program, and city employees do have the opportunity to use the facility at no cost.
Councilman Glendenning.
Yeah, also as part of this agreement, at least what I heard on the radio is just to confirm the understanding that the city will continue to put $10,000 a year into the budget of this facility for its promotional use and overhead. Is that correct?
Well, I guess that would be proposed, but that would be something have to be adopted through the budget process, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
So
just
it would be up to us
reiterating
to-
what I heard
it'd be us to do.
on the radio, and it was in a voice of authority that could say that. So
Yeah, well, like I said, as the process goes, it would be something that would be proposed to us, but
Every year,
I guess, Mr. Eubank, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Glenning, I believe that $10,000 is a fee to the Boys and Girls Club for teens, for the teen center upstairs, which would, it's the existing agreement that we have with them that guarantees they don't charge a club fee to area teens to utilize the facility. And I believe the intent is that would likely continue with the appropriation by council every year, but has nothing to do with the rec center downstairs. It's just the teen center upstairs.
thank you.
Vice Member Lloyd.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I just want to say that when I was a younger man, I very much appreciated the opportunity and didn't mind paying the fees to participate in City League basketball there regularly. Also, racquetball and volleyball. And so I always thought those fees were reasonable for those who could afford to pay them. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Unanimous consent was requested. Is there any objection? Seeing none, resolution number 2021-51 is adopted. Next, we have resolution number 2021-52, opposing amendment 14 to the fishery management plan for salmon fisheries in the EEZ off Alaska. Pleasure, council. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Move to adopt resolution number 2021-52.
Second that.
Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution number 2021-52?
Anyone on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. I just wanted to say I appreciate council's support on this, and I want to thank administration for putting together, I thought, a very good resolution that outlines the issues related to this, and I think it's pretty succinct message to NOAA, as for their comment period regarding the city of Kenai's stance and what this would mean to the city of Kenai. So thank you for that. Any other discussion? Councilmember Winger.
Yes, I would just like to thank Ms. Hines for sending out the email on the letter of delegation that I had talked about at the last meeting that showed our senators and House representatives as well coming together on this. So I would just like to thank her for getting that out.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Vice Mayor Malloy.
Yeah, and definitely support this. Appreciate Mayor Gabriel, you bringing this forward for all council members to sign and support. And want to note that the loss of the fisheries would also be harmful to citizens that enjoy purchasing fish at the market even, in addition to what's laid out in this resolution. Thank you.
Councilmember Knoxton.
It's probably a question for you, Mayor, but I was wondering who specifically does this, and maybe it's in here, I didn't see it, who does this resolution go to? Or
It goes to NOAA.
Well, NOAA is
Yeah.
a federal organization, so,
Right. So basically, this is, I think it's part of the process that goes through the Magnuson-Stevens Act. So, the drift fleet you see that had sued the state because they didn't have a federal management or fisheries management plan for Cook Inlet that was required under the Magnuson-Stevens Act, and they prevailed. And part of that had to go back, meant it was sort of remanded back to the North Pacific Fishery Management Council to scope a management plan, a fisheries management plan that would comply with Magnuson-Stevens. So this is, I think you'd remember we sent one to the Secretary of Commerce, I believe it was. So this is sort of that process as it works its way through as far as comment periods go. I know we had asked the Secretary of Commerce to just flat out veto that, which apparently wasn't something that happened. So
well, I believe that was kind of my question. NOAA is, I can put NOAA up on my phone, but I mean, if there's an individual or individuals
Oh, I
or
see what you're
something
saying.
like that specifically that it's going to, or is it a sub-department in NOAA?
I think it was,
Mayor Gabriel.
It's room,
oh, sorry, Ms. Hines. I think it
room
was.
5821.
Thanks. It's
Yeah.
the website that we submit it to. It's the Federal Register, but it goes to National Marine Fisheries Service, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and then Commerce is what it says on the, as part of the regulations.gov docket.
Did that answer your question?
It does.
I think I see what you're saying, but I think where this is going is that this is just a public comment, so it's sent to I don't think it's to a specific person, it's to the the body of the organization, you know. Oh, you did? Maybe I'm wrong.
If you're mailing comments, you can submit them to the Assistant Regional Administrator, Sustainable Fisheries Division, Alaska Region, National Marine Fisheries Services.
I like that idea also. I like targeting an individual as opposed to an organization. Just my thinking, but
I see where you're going with that. So with this, because these are being submitted, I presume, electronically, is that correct, Ms. Hines?
We submitted the last ones electronically.
Yeah, and this is,
It was two different scenarios for the last one versus this one.
is there provision in there to address it to that person that you'd send? I'm sure it would probably go
Yeah.
there anyway, so.
Yeah, you may submit comments on this document electronically or by mail.
Okay. Did that answer your question? Okay. Any further discussion on resolution number 2021-52? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Malloy,
Yes.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Petty,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet,
yes.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Just note on this that there's a signing line for everybody on council, so make sure we sign that before everybody takes off. So that brings us to item G7. Action approval, resume normal sitting in council chambers for all council and commission meetings. I guess we'll open it up by saying that I was happy to see that we're all back up here in the dais. I don't know if that occurred at our last meeting since I wasn't here, but so, and I presume is this would be for the gallery seating too, Ms. Hines?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I did a poll, and it was unanimous to agree to sit at the dais together again. And so, because Soldotna has recently acted on it, I decided to put on our agenda as well to consider just removing the signs from the seats and letting the public police themselves whether or not they wanted to sit near each other or maintain distancing.
I guess nodding in the head, who wants to see the signs go away and just have random seating here? So see everybody kind of shaking their head. Figured this would be a short discussion, so. You know, I was thinking half and half, but at this point, I think if everybody, you know, to be consistent, I think we should, you know, I agree, just go back to what I would call normal operations pre-COVID, let's say. I'm getting a nodding of heads, so let's go ahead and do that. So I figured that would be a pretty short conversation. If there's no objection, I'd like to move to the next, to item G8. Action participation by Zoom for council and commission meetings. Let's hear any thoughts. Anybody want to open on that one? G7, or G8 rather, I'm sorry.
I can
Oh,
jump off if you'd like me
Miss
to.
Hines, sure.
This was another piece of the Soldotna has removed Zoom. The city of Seward has removed Zoom. We are still live broadcasting through YouTube, which I guess I pointed up there because you can see our camera up there. But through YouTube, they can see the same thing. But for interaction in the meeting, they would need to physically come to the meeting.
Okay. Ms. Winger.
I personally am not a fan of Zoom, but in this case, I think the cost is relatively pretty low on this. So, I mean, I would support this either way. I do think it adds, in the world that we're in, where technology is developing and everything is an online presence, I think having this does add more transparency and access to our meetings for people that may not be able to come in. I did enjoy seeing Victoria on the screen instead of just hearing you on the phone. So it was nice to have a face to that. But I do think that it adds a level of transparency in the new age of everything going digitally. I think I would support this staying in place and look at this in another year.
Thank you. As far as adjudicatory meetings are concerned, like the Board of Adjustment, I don't think we should use Zoom for that. I think we should, of course, we have to be present, and I think we should have all the participants and witnesses be present. So I would not support Zoom for that. As far as public participation by Zoom at our meetings, I agree with Councilmember Winger on that. I don't think it's I think it's helpful to people that want to participate. And I know one time, the KPED director, Mr. Dillon, had to participate by Zoom during our pandemic, and that was helpful to us. And also former Mayor Porter participated by Zoom on the dog park issue, from Texas. And it doesn't seem like it is a, of course, I don't run the I'm not sitting in the clerk's seat, so, it just seems to me like the clerk and the deputy clerk have handled it well, and it hasn't been a big issue in terms of the meeting, and of course, the mayor does his usual expert job with Zoom participants. So I would support continuing it for the next year. We already have money in the budget, et cetera. And then after that, the next council can decide for the next year. But so I support for going forward, except for adjudicatory.
Councilmember Petty?
I'm really not in favor of Zoom at all. What we do here is very important, and being present is very important, and having interaction presently is very important. And as far as commission meetings, this is an honor and a privilege to be able to serve our community. And if you can't meet physically, then maybe you need to reevaluate whether or not you can, you have the time with which to do this. So at this point in time, I would continue to move forward, but I certainly would want to reevaluate it when our Zoom contract is over. Thank you.
Mayor
This
Gabriel?
is a point. Ms. Hines?
Thank you. I just want to be clear that this is for public participation. With the end of the public health emergency, there's no provision in code for the commissioners to participate by Zoom any longer. So they've all been told that they need to come back to meeting in person. So it's just for the public participation. And the city council did enact for themselves that city council members may participate by Zoom or electronic participation in the future for themselves. And so this is what the question is really just public participation, and for not only city council meetings, but also commission meetings. And so the clerk's office has been attending the commission meetings, which we never used to do, in order to get them going, because there's a lot of buttons to push and make sure that they're all up and running. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was something that you still wanted going forward. And I think I got everything.
So just out of curiosity, there's the comment made about going maybe to the end of our current contract. Do we have a current contract with, and when would that expire? Just
It's an annual, and I believe it expires in March of 2022.
thank you. Councilmember Knox then.
Thanks, Jamie. That's exactly how I remembered it, and it is for public participation only. And I think another part of our conversation before had to do with maybe those of the public that are providing information such as Tim Dillon, something like that, and would require some kind of a policy perhaps that would come through the clerk's office when, if we were to not have public Zoom, but we would have it for council members, but let's say there was something like a presentation from the EDD, another agency or like that, when that would be approved and that would go through your office. Is that something that you think you could prepare as we go forward?
Sure, I certainly can. I believe the time that Mr. Dillon presented by Zoom, we were all by Zoom at that point. He's presented in person a couple of times since then. But if you wanted to allow for scheduled public comments, I guess, to be by Zoom, I can create a policy for that.
Well, just to continue, I kind of agree with Glenyce. I mean, it's a little bit of a distraction having two meetings going in two places like this, and I would prefer us to kind of move away from Zoom. Certainly, if I was calling in, even though I may not be able to see you, and maybe I could, you'd be able to see me. And I think that there's an advantage to council to participate that way, which is not what this is about. So then it comes down to the public participation. There's, looks like Marion might be up and there's somebody else, but we've had very little, very, very little that way. And certainly we have these cameras here. People can see what's going on. And since we're moving forward, they can also come in if they feel strongly enough and speak in front of us. And it's much more powerful anyway than behind a picture. So I'm inclined to see Zoom for the public participation sunset.
Councilman Weir.
I just want to point out that we heard about that we have the YouTube channel versus the Zoom for public participation. You can't do public comment on YouTube, which you can do on Zoom. So there would be a total lack of an aspect there of just going to YouTube over Zoom.
Any other discussion? I guess where I'm at with it is Ms. Hines said, I mean, anybody can tune into a meeting and not participate. I mean, or plan on participating. In addition to coming here and providing, public testimony on any piece of legislation, most, people have the ability to email the clerk and have them include it in the packet as a comment or as a lay down. In addition, I usually, if somebody emails me with a specific comment regarding an ordinance or resolution, I'll usually forward that to the city clerk and ask her to include that as a lay down so that we have, everybody's in the loop on that. So I'm kind of with, Glenyce and Henry to go sort of back to where we were before, because I could see, Zoom, that it could become a little bit problematic, if you have connectivity issues. People might feel like they didn't get their chance to be heard or things like that. It's served us well to get to where we are now, but I don't think it should be on a lingering effect of the COVID. On the other hand, if our contract goes through till March, I guess it's already been paid for and it's been in the budget, so I guess I wouldn't necessarily object to continuing it till then, but wouldn't be in support of moving it on after that. Anyway, my 2 cents. So it sounds like we've got a divided body here. How did you want to handle that, Ms. Hines? You want to take
It's listed as an action approval, so if somebody wants to make a motion and vote it up or down, we can go that route, or I can put it back before you in February when the contract is close.
Okay, let's maybe I could entertain a motion from the pro side, I guess, to continue till March and revisit then, and then see where that goes, and that would tell us, I guess. Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. So I would move to approve public participation by Zoom for council meetings and for commission meetings, excluding adjudicatory meetings and until the contract expires in March 2022.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the motion? Councilman Winger.
Like I said, I am personally not a fan of Zoom, but would like that transparency and access. And I think this is a fair compromise on the body to postpone us till the contract expires in March and go through this in February.
Councilman Axton.
Transparency, that's a catchword. We're pretty transparent on the, on the computer, on the screen up there. There's no lack of transparency here. Anybody can come see us, so that really doesn't factor in. And anybody within the city can come, or they could actually call in too, or they could send an email. So it'd be back to the way we've done it before. And this process really hasn't, it's been there, but it really hasn't really served the public that way. So I'm going to vote against it.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you. So again, I think it hasn't had a real adverse effect on our meetings. My recollection is a little bit different than the city clerk. Mr. Dillon was here one time during the pandemic in person, and the second time when he testified by Zoom, it was because he was, out of the area and needed to present to us. And that was a scheduled presentation. So I support it for the reasons that I stated previously until March.
Any other questions? Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Winger,
Yes.
Councilmember Askin,
Yes.
Mayor Gabriel,
Yes.
Councilmember Petty,
Yes.
Councilmember Naxtet,
No?
Councilmember Glendenning,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Council on item G9, discussion, introduction of Kenai waterfront revitalization and economic development incentives, and request to schedule a work session. And I think we'll just start off with, do you want to lead off, Mr. Eubank?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. There is a whole lot going on in this memo, and I hope I can do it justice. This is one I think you all wish Paul was here to talk about. But I think what this memo really does is it does a couple of things. It takes a step back and it looks at where the administration is on development of some different programs, economic development programs here within the city. It also talks about some of the potential tools that we've identified that may become part of some of those programs. And then in particular, it talks about an idea of Kenai waterfront revitalization and a specific request to have a work session to discuss that, and with the intent of the administration to commission a feasibility study to assist us with different ideas or possibilities of what could go on down in that area. And then that feasibility study would also look at, say the Kenai City Code to determine, or the plan or the zoning code to determine if there are changes that we need to make or amendments that would make some of this redevelopment, revitalization more feasible. Or it also look at some of the economic incentive programs or tools that we have at our disposal that could become useful in that or may not be useful in that process specifically. And I think a number of those tools can fit in multiple of these programs, whether it's a program to incentivize large-scale development in the Kenai outside of the waterfront, or large-scale improvement to existing buildings, some of our deteriorated buildings in town, and get those back up to standard. So there's a lot of different moving parts here, but this also lays out a timeline for this process that we hope to adhere to. But the actual request for tonight is request to schedule a public work session to discuss specifically revitalization of the waterfront, with the intent of the administration introducing an ordinance at the second meeting in August to provide funding for a feasibility study associated with that. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions.
Okay, see Ms. Winger's lights on. Councilman Winger.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Eubank. Do you happen to know what the cost of that study will be offhand?
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Winger. At this point in time, I don't. I know internally we've tasked, or Mr. Foster's been tasked, the city planner, with developing a scope of work for that study, and then once that's developed, we'll probably try to generate a cost estimate, but I don't have one for you here tonight.
Thank you.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, also, the sidebar discussion that happened earlier, but I would like to go on the record and say that it's important that we fold in our commissions and committees that, touch the various aspects of this, and how that is done can be revealed in the work session, and perhaps we can task each commission and committee that has involvement in their area of concern with soliciting public comment and then advising us as they are wont to do. So
Thank you.
I'm just throwing that out. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I think this is a really great idea, and support scheduling a work session on this. I guess I would compare it to something that Councilmember Naxted would have a lot more knowledge of than me, but in the early 2000s, there was a similar effort relating to the airport, and there was not only a feasibility study, but a whole lot of documents that were done by a consultant, and it was, as I recall, and this could be wrong, Finance Director Eubank would have more knowledge of that. It was spending, I think it was around $250,000, and for the whole thing, but it was really money well spent, because what came out of that was the whole thing for the airport reserve and land, and it took like 15 years, but it was kind of like a vision, and so all the economic development of the airport, came on after that because I think it was. Ordinances started to be adopted in 2005 or something like that. And so it really was a good kickstart to the development of our airport, and a lot of programs. And, we going to the changes, a lot of changes to code happened after that study was done. So this is kind of like a long-term thing too. I mean, there would be a lot of ordinance changes that would come out of that, and a lot of programs, but it's like a future leaning. It might take many years to implement it, and we're still implementing that at the airport. So I think this is exciting. Thank you.
Councilmember Naxted.
Just for some clarity, I'm thinking that the waterfront we're talking about is along bridge access primarily, which is mostly privately owned, and I was just curious if administration has reached out, if you have any feedback, any positive feedback or any interest from private property owners.
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Naxted, we have not reached out. That's certainly our intent. Once the work session is scheduled, is to involve the general public, but specifically all of those property owners in that area there too, to start talking about the ideas, and because you're right, we don't predominantly own virtually any of that land, down in that one area down through there. So it is going to take, concerted effort of a large group. This is a public-private partnership type scenario where that we're looking to facilitate.
Any further, Councilmember Winger?
I would just like to kind of touch on what Councilmember Glendenning said, and I'd like to see comment from all the committees on this as well, so that we can have input and participation. Thank you.
Yeah, we had just so you know, Mr. Eubank and I had a sidebar during the break there and discussed that thing. So apparently what will happen is if we move to have a work session, then they would be notified and would be able to participate in that. And I guess my question would be, how long would you project a work session to last, Mr. Eubank? Is it something that we could schedule like maybe just prior to our next council meeting in August, or do you want to do a standalone date, or did you have any? I didn't even put you on the spot there, but.
Thank you,
Or I
Mr.
guess gauge from council whether they would want to do an hour before our next council meeting, or do a standalone, or Councilmember Winger.
I think there was a lot of moaning and groaning only because we have so many executive sessions and our schedule's really full going up before that meeting.
Yeah,
And-
Board of Adjustment, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
No, with the Board of Adjustments, we have 3 upcoming, so I'd prefer maybe after if we could, but I'm open to whatever.
Okay, I guess, nodding of heads, are we sort of looking, is everybody in agreement to have a work session? And sounds like early August, Mr. Eubank, is that what you're hoping for? Like, do you pull out a calendar here? Or we could send out a doodle poll, I guess. August 6th, August 6th work for everybody? So Friday?
Yeah.
Councilmember Glendenning?
Yeah, I've committed my August and July. I haven't seen any baseball for a while and whatnot, and so if the Athletics are playing the Giants, I might find myself in America during this time. I'm sorry, but that's my point.
Okay, but I mean, if you wanted to, you could call in. I mean, what time frame are you gone to? From like the first 2 weeks of
That's
August?
my host is developing that schedule now. I'm just saying that that's my plan anyway. If I can zoom in, I will, and if not, you just have to carry on without me.
Okay. Yeah. Any other objection to August 6th?
I have scheduled conflicts on that
I'm
day.
just starting to
Thank you.
throw out dates, and
Sure.
I mean, just having a start later than that, a week later, August 13th.
But before a meeting still is fine with me.
Yeah.
We're here, and if Mr. Glendenning has to zoom in from somewhere, he would be zooming in once,
Or not.
or not.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would like to do it before the meeting. If it's an hour, it's only an hour instead of having to commit to a different day. That's kind of what I was thinking, is just doing
How about the 18th then?
the 18th, which would be our second meeting. Okay.
The 18th is when the ordinance would be introduced by this scale.
The schedule. First meeting in August, just prior to the first meeting in August?
Yeah.
Is that, can I get a nod of heads there? Miss-
Yes.
Okay, I mean, I got one yes, I see, I think Councilmember Winger's okay with it? Okay, I see,
Before August the 4th, regularly scheduled.
yes. Okay. Ms. Askin, okay, very good. And I would just like to know, Mr. Cherrier's in the office. Would you be available during that time? I know you're an interested party here, so that way I just wanted to get that on the schedule. And otherwise, if you weren't available for whatever reason, I would have you maybe make some comments here this evening. But our work sessions are open to the public, and you're able to make comments there if you'd like. Okay. So we got that knocked off our schedule. Next up, commission committee reports, Council on Aging.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The next meeting is tomorrow at 4, and the meeting will be over at the Senior Center. And our previous meeting was canceled for lack of agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I did have a question for you. I think I saw, looking and passed through the agenda, and there was something about the verbiage senior or something like that. What was I missing on that? Is there?
Yes, there was discussion about a council on aging, and that's the name of the council on aging, and they're discussing the word aging, and that's up for discussion tomorrow evening. And so the saga and story continues.
Okay.
Has not yet been determined.
I
Thank
couldn't
you.
glean enough from the minutes that were submitted in the packet, so I
Oh.
thought thank you for that.
Yep, thank you.
So I stay tuned is what you're saying, I guess. Huh? Airport Commission.
Airport Commission canceled its meeting for tomorrow night, so their next meeting is August 5th.
Thank you. Harbor Commission.
Next meeting is Monday, August 9th.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Commission.
Yes, we won't be meeting in July. Our next meeting is August 5th. I do want to point out that as I was driving up by the Crawley where the trails meet, I noticed that there are some of the boot brushes that were put forth, and that was the Eagle Scout project. So I am beginning to see those boot stations as well.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Described as the Kenai Peninsula Housing Initiative for Development of Restricted Senior Housing. Of course, we passed that unanimously, and it was addressed this evening in our agenda. And then also we approved unanimously conditionally donating a certain city-owned property for the Triumvirate Theater development. Some comments were just from commissioners and whatnot. They're still questioning about the bowling alley, the facade falling down, and they're kind of understand contact has been made. The question is there a timeline for some resolution on that, or just it doesn't have to be answered tonight? It's just, you know, they're concerned about it. Also, well, it's a subject of an executive, of a adjudicative meeting, so I'll pass on that comment. July 14th is our next meeting, and we'll be talking about assignment of some airport land, and training sessions will continue. There was a work session in the June 23rd meeting to conduct Planning and Zoning Commission training, and it was well received. There was a lively discussion, and good information was exchanged, and thanks to administration for providing that leadership. And that ends my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautification Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. Tuesday, the 10th of August, will be a beautification garden tour from 5 to 6 p.m. I believe we all meet here, and then we'll be carpooling around Kenai. And the next meeting is September 14th.
Thank you. Ms. Sines, could you put out an invite to council for that?
I will. It's our first I've heard of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Mini Grant Steering Committee, there is no report. Under report of the mayor, I just wanted to thank Vice Mayor Malloy for filling in for me while I was on vacation. Had a great vacation. It was unbelievable. We had all the family together in one spot on Cape Cod, and I got that Cape Cod summertime vibe, which was pretty neat. And then in addition to doing the meeting, he also filled in for me for the reopening of the Art Guild, because I had a fish opening that day, and I appreciate. I want to thank him for that. 4th of July parade was so much better than last year. It's, yeah. Agreed, you know. And I think, you know, when I always ask, you know, you sort of go, you know, hindsight, you know, how did you do, or how, you know, your matrix of how do you responded to certain things, and you know, there's so much uncertainty with COVID last year, and but I think, you know, hindsight's 2020. But looking back, I think sort of not only my regret, but probably other members' regrets is that the one thing we didn't have was our 4th of July parade, and it was so nice to see that back in Kenai. The weather was beautiful. The chamber did an awesome job putting that on, and so this year I was actually walking behind the color guard. So there was a City of Kenai police vehicle, the color guard, and then myself and my family, and I was just really neat to see how many people, as we made our way, actually, you know, stood up and acknowledged our flag as it went through it. You know, it really brightened up my heart, because it's, you know, when you hear of all the sort of, you know, people that, you know, where we're at as a country, and you know, it was just neat to see that in our community. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also want to thank Ms. C for testifying here this evening on a couple issues with the City of Kenai. And with that, I will turn it over to administration reports and move to City Manager, Mr. Eubank, Acting City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'll be brief. About the only thing I really wanted to bring up is Saturday will be the first day of the 2021 PU fishery. So you'll see a lot of activity already going on. I think most of the shacks have already been set. I know the street crews prepping the entrances on and off the beach, and all the other preparation. Ton of signage goes out. So city's in full swing getting ready for the PU fishery. We have our all hands meeting tomorrow at the library, where all city and all the temporary personnel that we hire will all meet and discuss the fishery all at once. Yeah, it's going to be a busy next 3 weeks. Hopefully we have some good weather, and the fish are good, and people come and enjoy themselves. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Acting City Manager, Mr. Eubank? Councilmember Petty.
Yes, Mr. Eubank, I know in the past, we have been given little vouchers so that we could observe, and I was wondering if those were going to be available for council members this year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Petty, yes, we will get VIP passes out to council.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Glendenning.
Yeah, and please, for the Harbor Commission also, I believe it was mentioned in our meetings, but if that could be done, thank you.
Ms. Winger.
Yes, question for Mr. Eubank. Will there be signs put out on the fields, as there was at the late end of the fishery last year, that just said no ATVs to be used? Because people were zipping up and down all around our the outskirts of the ball fields, kind of the grass green that we're mowing and maintaining. And they had to put signs out last year to just remind no ATV use on those. Will we have those signs out again this year?
Mr. Eubank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Winger, I don't know specifically the signing plan, but I will certainly ask.
Any other questions of the Acting City Manager? Seeing none, our City Attorney is on leave this meeting, so we'll go to City Clerk, Ms. Hines.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel, members of council. I have a few things tonight, unfortunately. So we recently learned that the Leif Hansen Memorial Park is full. All of the available plots have been reserved, and the reason it's caught me a little bit by surprise, we've sold 10 in the last few months. In 2019, we sold 5, and in 2020, we sold 8. So I apologize that I'm a little bit late telling you that it's already full without coming to you before that. So I just wanted to let you guys know. We've also got 2 inquiries also for 2 more inquiries that we don't have spots for at this point. Also on the same sort of topic, I thought I'd give you an update on the cemetery. We have 8 casket plots available at this point. We've been under a moratorium since 2016, and we're just waiting for the expansion project to be finished so that we can start reserving plots in the new addition. And we still have several spots for cremains and in the columbarium at this point, but the casket plots are getting quite low. Also, interesting, our public records requests have been up tremendously in the past couple of months. I think we've done about 8 of them when we usually only do about 8 a year. So, interesting facts. Candidate filing begins August 1st. The paperwork will be available on the website starting on July 15th and will also be in my office. And then required to be submitted to my office and certified by August 16th. Monday, August 16th. It's extended a day this year because of the 15th falling on a Sunday. August 4th is the last meeting to enact legislation for putting propositions on the ballot. And in your laydown, there's a memo regarding a Board of Adjustment hearing, a Board of Adjustment appeal that's been filed, and potentially advising the scheduling of a Board of Adjustment hearing for that matter. I thought it made sense to do it tonight rather than trying to do it by email if you wanted. It's an administrative thing, so it doesn't necessarily need to be posted on an agenda to schedule a meeting. So
Okay, what was this for again, Ms. Hines?
this is an appeal of a Planning and Zoning Commission decision approving a conditional use permit for firewood bundling business, which is a storage yard in the rural residential zone, VIP Ranch Estates on Bowpicker Lane. So
This was the one that was just approved by.
Correct. We've received one appeal today, and we expect to receive another one tomorrow. I imagine that the hearing would be handled much the same way as we had 2 appeals filed against a marijuana retail store out by the Moose Lodge at one point, and we had 2 appellants and 1 appellee
Right.
at that point, so
Yep.
both appeals could be heard on the same night, I think, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, yeah, I hear what you're saying. So the second appeal would be against the, is that what you're saying?
That's
Or-
right,
or-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 45 days, Saturday, August 21st, which we could extend to August 23rd. Mr. Glendenning, do you know when, are you gonna be back up towards the end of August, or?
I do not know. I planned baseball for August, and
Okay,
I'm at the mercy of my hosts.
okay. Anybody want us to lead off with some proposed dates here? I know we got a busy, more of a busy schedule usually than we usually have here at the end of July. We got a work session and a meeting 1st of August. August. I'll just lead off here, August 16th. That's a Monday.
I'm good.
Yeah, I know,
I'd be happy with any date previous to the 17th when school starts.
okay, that's previous 16th, so you're good with the 16th? Okay.
Okay.
How about Monday, August 16th, 6 PM?
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any other informational items on the side?
Nope, that is all I have.
Any questions of the city clerk? Seeing, Councilmember Winger.
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and everything you do. You know, I was bummed to get that letter on my travels and had quite a long time to debate it, and I just want to let you know that you're very valuable, and I thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ms. Hines? Okay, seeing none, we will go to additional public comment. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to address the council at this time?
Anyone on Zoom can use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself.
Okay, well, then we'll move to council comments, and let's start with Ms. Askin.
Thank you. I zoomed in and listened to the city planner's presentation, and I actually learned a couple things, and I thought he did a really good job. I got to be a part of the judging for the parade. Enjoyed that very much. It was really nice to see so many people out and about and really enjoying themselves. And last but not least, I plan to run for my seat on city council this year.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Askin. Councilman Glendenning.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gabriel. I too attended the 4th of July parade and noted with interest the dog park people had a very cute and excellent and evocative display of their project in the parade. And again, this is something that's grassroots. It's supported by the city, and it'd be just another positive thing for our goal destination for activities within the city for those who have animals, and I know it will be a success, and I thank the council in advance for its support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Petty.
I just want to say I'm so very thankful that the Kenai Arts Center had its grand opening. Regrettably, I did not have the privilege to attend, but look forward to seeing their first show. And they did send us and give us our following exhibits for the rest of 2021, and just to put it on your calendar for the September Harvest Art Auction. It's always an event that is looked forward to, so you don't want to miss that. I did have the privilege to participate in the parade, and it was so wonderful to see all of our community members participating and all of our friends who came out to wave the flag and celebrate our freedoms here in Kenai and Alaska and America that none of us want to take for granted. And so it was a great festivity, and it seemed as if fun was had by all. And then on the park strip, all the festivities that were going on over there in that celebration. And so anyway, it was a privilege and honor to participate. And that ends my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. I had the privilege of touring our great state for 10 days with my kids, as you know. I got to connect with people from all over the United States, many that have been to our area. The feedback I got on what they came, what they seen, what they did, what they wish they could have done, just definitely reiterated some of our strengths and our weaknesses on the Kenai Peninsula as a whole. One of them being is everywhere I went, there was not a single one of these that promoted Kenai or even Kenai Peninsula as a whole. So I could go anywhere from McCarthy, Valdez, Denali, Chena, and I could get these books for Valdez, for Denali, for Fairbanks, but there wasn't a single presence from Kenai. But yet in McCarthy, I talked to 4 different people that had came to the Soldotna area. So I believe if we really try to push these documents out into more areas, that will help with our tourism into the area, because we don't have a presence with our documents. There's nothing to drive people to the Kenai. So I would like to see these getting out around our state more. We're really lucky if you have a chance to get to McCarthy and go to the Kennecott Mill. I heavily suggest you doing it, but bringing tire plugs and a spare tire with you for surely. But take that experience. It's beautiful. Do the mill tour. We're blessed and lucky to live in the state that we live in. And I thank everybody for the great debates and conversations we had tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember, or Vice Mayor Malloy.
Thank you, Mayor Gabriel. As Mayor Gabriel indicated, I covered the Kenai Fine Arts Center reopening event for the mayor as he had a fish opening. This was sponsored by the Fine Arts Center and the Potters Guild, and they did a fantastic job. And I'd like to say there's really some really impressive and amazing work there. That's a lot of it's already sold, but please go and check it out. I made some comments thanking them for the event and thanking Miriam Nelson for the tour that she gave to me and Councilmember Naxted, recognized Councilmember Naxted and former Councilmember Navarre, who was there because they had both voted for the funding for the renovation project and everything, and been a fine arts supporter, as well as Public Works Director Curtin and the city manager for all their support of the renovation. And again, like I said earlier, it looks really good inside. I also had the fun of being a parade judge for the 4th of July with Councilmember Askin and Councilmember Naxted. That was really a blast. It was, as the mayor said, it was a great event. He and Commissioner Gabriel and their grandchildren were participants, as well as Councilmember Petty was a participant in the parade itself. They were paraders. There was at least 45 registered floats, and then there was more floats that showed up, and a lot of individuals. And Councilmember Naxted put in the results, but as an information item. But they were the winner of the commercial was Kenai Vision Center. Youth School was Kenai Performers. The individual award went to the Amphibious Car by Jeff and Linda Williams. The winning organization was the Harley Group. All of their motorcycles were pretty amazing this year. There was more of them than normal. The automobile category winner was Jeff Kipp for his Hornet, and the overall winner was Diamond Dance. So that was really great. I just want to comment briefly on the item that was introduced. That was the ordinance for repeal and reenactment of Title VI on elections. An important thing for you to note is on page 16 of the packet, the effective date is January 1, 2022. Although the public hearing is August 4th, if council needs other public hearing or wants to hear other public comment, in other words, it won't be in effect for the election coming up for October 2021. What's happening with it, it's different than the ordinance that you saw last fall. There's no voting centers and all of that stuff in it. It's simpler. It puts into code a lot of practices that we already have, but they're not in code, similar to what the process the borough's going through. Of course, 98% of this is the city clerk's work. My input was similar to Councilmember Peterkins in the original one, which was review and comment and some ideas. Basically, we won't be using state equipment anymore, so a lot of our references to state are coming out. However, on election integrity, we're putting a lot of our election integrity practices into place. And there's several sections on prohibitions and penalties. And we're also restating the charter in several sections. I'm also going to bring forward, with the help of the city clerk and the city attorney, two resolutions for the August 4th meeting that will have to do with, asking the council to put ballot propositions on the ballot for voters regarding initiative, one on initiative and the other one on referendum, that would make our timelines more consistent with the state and most of the home rule municipalities that use 90 days as opposed to 30 days. If the council passes that and allows it to go on the ballot, and then if the voters pass that, then that would, cause an ordinance to be introduced later in the year that would amend a little section of the code that would be effective January 22, that just adopts the charter as is, because the charter part would be changed if that all happens. Also, I'm really pleased to hear that Councilmember Askin is going to run for re-election again. I really enjoyed working with you. Very thoughtful, hardworking person. Definitely plan on voting for you. It continues to be and will be an honor and a privilege to continue serving the citizens of Kenai together with all of you on the City Council until the term of my 2018 council ends this October of 2021. And I want to thank all of the voters who have supported me in the past and who have encouraged me to run again, but it is time for me to be term limited. And it's time for somebody else to, another qualified resident to have the opportunity to serve on the City Council. And so I wanted to let the public know that because we're not having another meeting, and all of you to know, I've talked with some of you privately about this, and it's great working with you all, really is. Again, I'm gonna not be doing what Councilmember Askin's doing, and but I will be voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Malloy. We still got till August 15th, I guess. I'll just leave it at that. Councilmember Nexton.
Yeah, we're going to make him work.
There's a lot of work left to be done.
There's a lot of work to do. Well, I don't want to rehash everything again, but I did go to the Fine Arts Center reopening, and I want to report that Mr. Malloy did a fine job as the vice mayor representing the city there and doing very handily, I might add. So very good. And one of the things it's always been a little confusing about the Kenai Fine Arts Center is just what its name is, because it's changed. And I think I've heard since we've had this meeting tonight, it referred to two other things. And Alex, the executive director or whatever, he said they've settled on Kenai Fine Arts Center now. That's what it is. So. And I guess it's not going to change. So that's in. But at any rate, I did get a tour of the building also, and it's substantial. It's way better than it was before. They do have some work to complete, but it's definitely very usable in there. I did participate in the 4th of July parade as a judge. Enjoyed that, and also Mr. Malloy here was. It's usually council members get to do that, and some of the board. Members also, but it sounds like you'll be invited to come do that again, just because you're good at it, I guess, and all of that. But that's what I gathered out of all of that, and we'll be missing you here, Bob, after this next election cycle. We like you've always pointed out, we agree on most things. And we do, and frankly, you're kind of a bit of a crutch, I'll have to say, because you're very detailed also, and but your thinking process as an attorney is very helpful at the dais here, and that will be greatly missed, particularly by me. And anyway, but I do want to say that I do appreciate Councilmember Askin is going to be running. And I was very hopeful of that. And of course, you were appointed, and you were in planning and zoning before that, and you've shown yourself to be quite the leader and a very thoughtful, thinking, considerate person. And I like the way you think, and I like the way you think about the city and how you promote the city. And however I can help you with your campaign and moving forward, I'd be happy to do that.
And Harbor Commission before Planning and Zoning, I believe, also. So The last thing, just want to mention, you have your current fiscal year budget in front of you. That's yours to take home. And with that, we have no other pending items or executive session before us, so this, and no other business before this body, so we are adjourned.